On South Asia. Welcome to the podcast produced by the Department of Modern South Asian Languages and Literatures, South Asia Institute, Heidelberg.
Welcome to today's episode of On South Asia. I am Arian Hopf, and today we are diving into a truly remarkable book that blends allegory, politics and philosophy. It is titled Vier Derwische or kachua, or in English, Four Dervishes and a Turtle. A contemporary work written in Urdu that draws on deep literary roots while addressing some of today's most urgent questions. Our guest today is the author Syed Kashif Raza, known for his poetry, essays and translations that tackle themes of resistance, identity and humanity. He has worked as a journalist and translator and has long been engaged in socio-political discourse in Pakistan. His first and so far sole novel, Vier Derwische or kachua, takes inspiration from the classic Indo-Persian tale Kissa-e Darvish, yet gives it a radically modern twist. His book, beautifully translated into German by Almuth Degener, opens a world that is both ancient in form and modern in its resonance. Kashif, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you very much, and thank you for Heidelberg University South Asia Institute for inviting me here.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, maybe let's start and talk already a bit about the book. So maybe you could first tell us a bit about the book itself and its story, and what inspired you to write Vier Derwische or kachua.
Yeah, there were many things that inspired me to write this, but basically, as I told in my session, that there were some questions, and there was some quest in me, and I was looking for some answers. Basically, I was looking for the impact of war on terror on our society. So I chose different characters from cities as well as from the rural areas, and I wanted to show the impact of this war on terrorism on these characters, and through these characters to our society, the impact that our society faced because of this war on terrorism, and also because of the religiosity and the induction of religion into politics. And there were other themes as well, some philosophical themes. Iqbal and the life of Iqbal and different aspects of Iqbal was also a theme, and other themes which maybe you'll be asking questions about those as well in this podcast. And I wouldn't like to divulge in the story because I wouldn't like to spoil the story for the listeners.
Yes, of course. It makes sense to read the story oneself. But still, let's maybe talk a bit about the title. So the title of your book already suggests a clear reference to the classical Kissa-e Darvish, the Indo-Persian story, or the Urdu version Baro Bahar. So what drew you to that title, and why did you choose to rework it for a contemporary context?
Yeah, I think there is a great tradition of dastans in Urdu, and it's more important for me because those dastans were not written by a single person. The whole civilization took part in writing those dastans. Like there is the dastan of Amir Hamza, and there's the 1001 Nights. So the whole civilization took part into it and contributed into it, and there is no single known author of these dastans. So in a way, these dastans tell something about the psyche of the whole civilization, like the Ganga Jamni civilization of India, where Muslims and Hindus were living together, and they contributed in this dastan and other dastans. So they tell about the psyche of the whole civilization. But there was another aspect that when writing fiction, most of our fiction writers think that we've got stories, but the Western fiction, they can teach us about the form of a story and form of fiction. But when I was reading this tale of four dervishes, Kissa Chahar Dervish, I thought that its form is also intriguing, and we can try to take this form as well. So, like the form of the Tale of Four Dervishes is that the first dervish tells his story, then the second dervish tells his story, and the third and the fourth, and that's how the characters come and go. But eventually all the stories mingle, and somehow there is some conclusion of their story. So that I adopted that form. As far as the form is concerned, I was inspired by this Tale of Four Dervishes. There were some instances in this Tale of Four Dervishes which had some symbolic meaning for me, like the tale of the bull that I took in this story. But all the characters of my story are real characters. They are contemporary characters. They have a sort of allegorical association with the Tale of Four Dervishes, because they are all the characters, all the main characters of my story are seekers. They are after some question. They are looking for some meaning in life. So they are basically seekers, as dervishes are. Dervishes are also seekers. They are after some kind of a question, some quest, maybe the quest for Allah, or maybe quest for peace or nirvana, or a quest for meaning in life. So these characters are also seeking something. So I called them dervishes, but they are not dervishes in the modern sense of the word. They are real characters, and I've chosen them from our society.
Yeah, that's an interesting aspect. I would also like to talk about this maybe a bit later. But what comes to my mind when we think of this tale of the Four Dervishes and your reconstruction or your reference to it, so to say. So we have actually like the main event going on around which all the stories of these four dervishes are circled is the assassination of Benazir Bhutto. So would you describe this also as an intent of your novel to present a multiplicity of voices, so to say, not only for this story but also in a general as a...
Yeah, the attacks and attempts on Benazir Bhutto was a starting point for this story, but the story comes to this point where there is an attempt on Benazir's life, and there is a final attempt on her life. But this is not the central point of the novel. The central point of the novel is the life of these four dervishes, a father and his three sons. The three sons who are living their lives in different contexts, in different periods of time, and they have different questions, and they are set in different cities as well. So the story basically revolves around them. But yes, attempts on Benazir's life and eventually her assassination is also, you can say that it's one of the starting points, and then the story eventually ends at one of the attempts on Benazir.
So as a circular around the story, so the frame story kind of. Interesting. But you add something quite central to the story, or to this classical narration of the Qissa-e-Chahar Darvish, which is the turtle. So the turtle in your story plays an unusual and central role, and it appears even as a character actually. Mm-hmm. So could you tell us a bit about the turtle, what it presents, and how the idea actually came to include this character?
The idea came because I had allowed all the four main characters to tell their own stories. But you see, whenever someone is writing his own autobiography, he tends to curtail his autobiography. He tends to amend his tale so that some aspects of his life doesn't come to the reader, and he wants that the reader should know some aspects of his story. So whatever autobiography we read is an amended autobiography, you can say. So I installed this turtle there, who is a pet of Javed Iqbal, one of the characters, but who also wants to highlight other aspects of the character's life. That's why I had to install that, and he's in constant fight with the narrator, who is the author as well. He tells him that the openness with which you are writing this story and the story of these 4 characters is not enough. There are still some aspects which you are hiding or which you are unable to write. So the kachua, the turtle, speaks about those aspects. And it also has some symbolic meaning as well. It has a symbolic meaning in the Hindu mythology as well. That's why I got this turtle from a temple, from a Hindu temple. And that Hindu temple is a very peculiar one because it is a Hindu temple, but it has a female owner, and that female owner takes out a procession on 10th Muharram as well and puts green flags on the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as well. So this temple has a symbolic value as well, and this turtle also has a symbolic value, not only in the Hindu tradition but also in other tradition. Like a turtle has a long age, so he remembers. He has a memory of many years. So all these things, and also it also symbolizes the malignant masculinity that is prevalent in Pakistan and India and in our society. So this turtle helped me to convey some other things that I was not able to tell through these characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one interesting fact is maybe you mentioned it at another place that the temple you describe in your novel is actually also a real temple that you also
it is. Yeah.
I think it was located in Karachi. As you
it is located in the area where I reside. It's an old city area where I live, and this temple is also situated.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact. Let's come to another point that you just mentioned. So you talked about masculinity, and sexuality is also a key theme of the book. So the stories of the 4 protagonists describe their different perspectives on sexuality. On the one hand, we have Javed Iqbal, who is attracted to 2 women at the same time, and on the other hand, Aftab Iqbal, who has never had a relationship, to only mention 2 of the 4 protagonists. In all of those stories, however, the man's gaze on women remains the central topic. In fact, the famous Pakistani writer Muhammad Hanif writes in a review, and I quote, "There is a popular myth that a man thinks of sex every 7 seconds. Syed Kashif Raza in his Vier Derwische or eine kachua finally puts this myth to rest and asks a very pertinent question. What is the man thinking of the other 6 seconds? He is thinking about the same thing he was thinking in the 7th second. He just pretends that he isn't," unquote. So is the primary purpose of this emphasis on sexuality and the male gaze to offer criticism, or rather to provoke and challenge boundaries?
Yeah, the function of a fiction writer is to present his characters, and if the characters are properly developed, they can justify their acts themselves. So a fiction writer doesn't have to justify the acts of a character. If the justification is there, it's enough. But yes, I wanted to portray and present this malignant masculinity, and the relation between this malignant masculinity with the hunger for power that is prevalent in our societies, in South Asian societies. So these 2 malignant things go hand in hand. So I've tried to show that, and it's for readers to construe whether it's feminist or an anti-feminist. A fiction writer basically is not giving some kind of a message. If there is a message, it's covert, I think. So this is for a reader to construe what that message is.
So, yeah, let's maybe talk a bit more about the protagonists. So the protagonists in your book each seem to have their own personal struggles and contradictions. Can you talk more about the specific challenges they face and how these struggles relate to broader social or cultural issues in Pakistan today?
Yeah, each of the character has his own struggle and his own quest or his own questions. Like Javed Iqbal is a journalist, but he's not a very keen journalist, and he has this beloved a co-worker who is a very passionate journalist. So these are two characters which present two different kinds of journalists, and Javed Iqbal is also grappling with his sexual pursuits as well, and his father was also a very romantic person, and he had his own sexual pursuits. So there is a kind of likeness between, as far as this aspect is concerned, there is a sort of likeness between the father Iqbal Muhammad Khan and Javed Iqbal. Aftab Iqbal, as far as Aftab Iqbal is concerned, her mother is an Ahmadi, and he is struggling with this dilemma of, you can say that it's sort of a curse that he has on him. He is not a very religious man, but even then he has to live with this sort of curse within inverted commas. I don't think it's a curse, but for him, the life he has lived, because of that life, this becomes a stigma that his mother belongs to an Ahmadiyya family. And there is Iqbal Muhammad Khan, who started his career with good intentions. He is a lover of poetry, but all his struggle seemed to go futile at the end of his life. So their questions are somewhat akin to each other as well, but they have their own individual struggles as well. So at the end, I have tried to develop these characters in a way that they somehow reach some conclusion, or they somehow get some solution of their questions, but maybe their story continues, because no story ends. As I've written in this novel, that a reader must be keen enough to know, or to like to know, that what happened in the 1002nd night. So the story, I think, continues.
Yeah, interesting. So you address actually quite delicate topics in your book also. But we just have talked about religious minorities with the Ahmadi community, which are considered not as Muslims in Pakistan, and you bring up the topic of sexuality as a key theme actually of the book. So do you see this book as a form of resistance literature? And if so, what does resistance look like in your writing practice?
Yeah, every writer should be interested in resistance, because no society is an ideal society. You are living in Germany, where I'm living in Pakistan. From our point of view, Germany looks a very modern country, a very progressive country, but writers are writing in Germany as well, and I think no writer in Germany would be satisfied with the situation in Germany, because if you are satisfied, you can't write. If you are a fiction writer, you are displaying some contradictions in your society, in the structure of the society. So every good writer is a resistance writer. I was very much interested in this resistance literature, because Urdu has a great tradition of resistance literature as well, even from the times of Iqbal and Hasrat Mohani and Shibli Nomani to this Faiz, Habib Jalib. So they've gained a lot of respect in our history. So yes, I was interested in resistance as well, and some of my poems as well, I wrote about this resistance. I didn't like many things in my society, my culture, and my civilization. There were many questions, and all these questions were also sort of questions which the society and people in general do not ask and do not like to be asked. So all these questions are there in my novel as well, in my poetry as well, and the readers generally said, and the reviewers generally said, that we can say that this novel is a sort of resistance novel. But I wouldn't like to put a full stop on this sentence that this novel is a resistance novel, because I've tried to depict the whole society and the impact of society, as I've told you, the impact of war and terror on this society. So there are other issues as well. So, and it can be read, this novel can be read and should be read from other points of views as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you often also use allegory in that book. Was that a stylistic choice rooted only in the classical traditions that you have references to, or were there other reasons for this approach as well?
Yeah, we have a great tradition of allegorical literature as well, like Panchtantra, and in Rumi's poetry especially there are many allegories, and there is this Attar story of Mantikottar in which there are 30 birds. So there is a huge tradition of allegorical literature in our part of the world. But this novel is also a modern novel, a contemporary novel. So allegory is on one level, just on one level. It is, if you read this novel on the first level, it's a simple story of a father and his 3 sons. But on the other levels, it's also an allegory, and then these 4 characters are stand-ins for some other personality, maybe Allama Iqbal, maybe they embody the thoughts of some particular character, and that's how you can say that these are allegorical characters. But at the same time, and first and foremost, they are real characters, and there are sort of layers as well in the novel. And from one point of view, you can say that these are allegorical characters, but it doesn't end here. They have other levels as well. But sure, I remember that Shamim Hanafi Sahab once said that this is an allegorical novel, and he was a very well-read critic. So you can say that it's an allegorical novel as well at one level.
Yeah, this brings us to another topic, the reception of your book. So as we talked already about the delicate topics that you address in your book, but how was the reception of your book in Pakistan and also in other parts of the world? Have you encountered any surprising or unexpected reactions to the themes you explore in the book?
The first surprising reaction was that it sold well, because before that I was known as a poet who used to write modern poetry like poems and ghazals. But this novel sold well, and it also received the Jubilee Prize for Fiction for 2019. So it was well received and many people read it. I was not expecting that this novel would be read by so many people. And then it was translated by Dr. Almuth Degener into German. So so far I've been satisfied by the reception of this novel.
Great. Let us come to a bit broader topic, the literary scene in Pakistan. So you chose to write in Urdu, a language with a rich literary history. What does writing in Urdu mean for you today, and how would you describe the contemporary literary culture in Urdu, especially considering the fact that many readers and writers now prefer English as their medium?
Well, the writers who prefer to write in English are those writers who can't write in Urdu. That's why they have chosen to write in English. Only I think Muhammad Hanif is the one who can write in Urdu as well, who can write in Punjabi as well. But because there is less readership in Urdu than it is in English, that's why Muhammad Hanif also writes in English. Mm-hmm. But there are the other writers who are writing in English, they can't write in any other language. As for me, I think I am a very much trilingual person. I can't spend a day without speaking all the 3 languages that I know, like this Urdu, English and Punjabi. Most of the reading that I do is in English. I read Western English fiction, and that's what has inspired me to write fiction as well. So in this novel as well, there are characters who speak Punjabi. There is this turtle who writes sometimes in English because he wants to say that there are things which you cannot describe in Urdu. That's why in 2 or 3 passages he uses English just to show it. And most of the Pakistanis are multilingual. They use more than 1 languages. So I think Pakistani culture is multilingual. Mm-hmm. And that's what I've tried to present in this novel. As for the tradition, what was the second part of your question? Literary scene in Pakistan?
The literary scene in general, yeah. So how would you describe the literary scene, and in particular in Urdu?
Yeah, I think there is a new wave of many literary festivals in Pakistan, starting with the Karachi Literature Festival, which was started by Asif Farruhi and Amina Syed. after which there were many literary festivals all around Pakistan. And there is another tradition of Almi Urdu Conference in Karachi, which means World Urdu Conference, in which people from around the world participate. So there is a renewed passion for literature in Pakistan, which I am seeing. And also there is a renewed passion for novel as well, Urdu novel as well. And not only mine, but other novels are also getting good reception there. But the general scene in Urdu is that we are the sort of people who like poetry more. But poetry is not well sold. People want to listen, or people are used to listen to poets themselves in mushairas, but they don't like to buy their books. So generally there are more poets in Pakistan than there are fiction writers. There are hundreds of poets who are writing the routine ghazal, but there are dozens of other good poets as well who are writing poems as well, prose poem and blank verse both. And they are serious poets as well, but they are not selling well. I think in Germany it's the same situation, that poets,
I would say it is
poets
even
do
worse.
not sell well.
Yes.
Yeah. But there are serious poets, and some of the poets have started writing fiction as well, which is, I think, a welcome phenomenon.
Yeah. So, as both a poet and a prose writer, how do you see the role of literature in today's Pakistan and more broadly in South Asia in general? And what impact can literature have, in your opinion, in challenging or reshaping societal norms in South Asia, especially when it comes to issues like gender, sexuality, and identity?
I think the literacy rate in Pakistan, especially, and in South Asia, is not very good. And even in India and other countries, you see that literacy rate there is higher. But even then, there is a certain jingoism there, which we are seeing right now, and the malignant masculinity and the hunger for power. So there are things that are not in control of the writers. A writer can only show what he thinks at a certain point in history. We are just writing about our point of view in a certain point of history. I don't think writers can do more than that. They can only say what they were thinking at a certain point of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, what would of course also be interesting for me and for the audience. So what are you currently working on? And will we see more novels from you in the future?
I've recently published a poetry collection in which there are ghazals, which is a traditional genre as well, and which connects me to the great tradition of Urdu poetry. And there are blank verse poems as well in that poetry collection. And after that, I'm thinking about compiling my non-fiction travelogues, which are not simple travelogues. They do not start from A to Z, and they do not start from my journey. There is also some sort of quest in those travelogues. I don't like to say that those are travelogues. I like to say that those prose pieces are non-fiction, just non-fiction. So I have written about 4 or 5 such pieces, and only 3 of them have been published, and I am trying to write more of those non-fiction pieces. And after that, I think I would be ready to write a novel. And there still are some questions in my mind, and as I've told you, that if I want to write something, I have to have some question or some quest in my mind. Then I try to develop some characters around that question who have the same questions in their mind. So sure, I would like more novels, hopefully.
We are looking forward. Yeah, that brings us to the end of this fascinating conversation with Syed Kashif Raza. His book, Vier Derwische, eine kachua, or Four Dervishes and a Turtle, is not just a literary work. It's a journey into a Pakistan we usually do not get to know here in Europe. And if today's episode has sparked your curiosity, we highly recommend getting a copy of the book, whether in the original Urdu or in its powerful German translation by Almuth Degener. A huge thank you again to Syed Kashif Raza for joining us, and to all of you listening in.
Thank you, Shun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've listened to an episode of on South Asia, a podcast by the Department of Modern South Asian Languages and Literatures, South Asia Institute, Heidelberg. Have a look at our other episodes as well. For topic wishes and feedback, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find our email in the description.